What's going on, y'all? Charles here from the Traders Corner. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button down below. This is basically just going to be a quick video doing some quick analysis heading into the trading week, so let's get into it.
How you feeling?
Bro, it was great.
No,
It was great. It was better than I expected.
excellent. It was very
Better than I
excellent.
expected.
So, like I said before, going to be doing some quick analysis here heading into the trading week. So, just going to be taking you through basically what I do on the weekends to prepare myself for possible opportunities later in the week. This isn't to say that I know what's going to happen or anything like that, or I'm the best trader in the world, but one, just to put myself out there and kind of document the journey. Two, we also at the Traders Corner hope to help anybody out there that might be just a little bit earlier in the journey, and seeing people who are going through that process and struggling through the journey themselves can be very helpful, and that's something I've definitely seen in my own journey going forward with trading and watching certain people grow through things like YouTube or Instagram. So kind of the same idea. So let's just get into the charts now. All right, Charles. So as I mentioned before, just gonna be doing some quick, analysis here. Gonna be going through basically the only like 6 pairs I trade right now. I'm kind of being very methodical in testing pairs, and I only trade pairs that I've back tested before. And that's not to say that my strategy doesn't. I don't think my strategy will work on other pairs. It's that comfort level in your strategy and knowing that you've seen something like this before, or even if you haven't seen something like this before, that over the long run your strategy works on this pair. So that's kind of the basis for why I only trade pairs that I've back tested. Then on top of that, I kind of want to be methodical, because especially with a new strategy, you don't want to just rush in and try to start trading every single 28 pairs, and you're going to be missing opportunities like I was at the beginning. So that's kind of the idea. So we're just going to be doing, I'm going to be showing y'all a few of the pairs that I trade, not all 6, but, just going through some analysis on a few of the pairs. So this one, JBP, JPY, GBP, JPY, sorry, it's a bit messier, right? And it's one of those ones where you kind of have to read between the lines. But in cases like this, I found it very helpful just to kind of focus on the most recent price action, right? Because, technically speaking, I could put this on right here, right? And that would make sense. And then I could clone this as well. Didn't clone it. And then I could clone this as well, and then kind of put this up here, right? Just as a reference. But also, if we just look at this most recent price action, it still makes sense for what we're seeing now. I'll move to the upside to possibly get another touch of this double top area before moving lower. But we don't have to get that. But, just focusing on the most recent price action, we can leave this on just for reference sake, because also it does come in line with the completion of the 90% rule of this pattern here. But, again, just focusing more on recent price action. We're going to boil down to the daily. You can see that we got a nice, basically 3 touch or double bottom here, but we moved up higher. The most important thing is that we got an impulse down, impulse up, right? And now we're getting a correction. So we could come back down to the downside to get a double bottom in this area, right? But we don't have to, because the higher time for momentum right now is going to the upside. And on top of that, we do have this larger descending pattern that we're a part of. So overall, the higher time for momentum looks to be going to the upside. But again, we can take shorter term trades to help the higher time for momentum play out, right? So although, moving down to the downside obviously isn't moving to the upside, like the higher time for momentum might suggest right now, it moving down to the downside, getting a double bottom, then moving to the upside, again, is just helping the higher time frame play out. It just might take a little bit longer, right? And so that's kind of the basis for, and especially when I'm in this area, kind of in the middle of the pattern, I want to really be open to either way, right? Because we could move to the downside, but at any moment, especially us with this move up, and then we're looking for a correction, then another move up, we could at any point, the higher time momentum could override to the upside. So, just kind of staying on the ball with that. We're going to go down to the 4 hour and see what we're getting kind of in the middle of this pattern and see if we have any, if anything makes sense for possible opportunities, this week. So right now we're seeing this type of pattern here, basically a nice ascending pattern with what looks to be, forming a nice middle section. So we could break out of the middle section of this ascending pattern and double top around that area, and then move lower, or we could get a completion of the pattern and then move lower, or we could just move up and then continue to move up, like I was saying before, because the higher time momentum is pointing to the upside. But the fact that we have this ascending pattern means that we could be forming just a larger bull continuation. So basically move up, ascending pattern, break lower, basically forming a move up impulse, correction, impulse. So, that gives me a good indication that we could move to the downside in the shorter period while looking to move to the upside. So then we're going to go down to the 60 now. On the 60, it makes sense, again, what we were talking about before. And then if we just want to pull this back, you could see this area as well. So basically impulse correction, we could come up here for a third touch of this one, forming a triple top, more completion of this pattern before moving lower. To ultimately, hit the 90% rule of this, which again is what we were forecasting before on the 4 hour. Or we could just push out and double top, and then move lower, or push out, complete this pattern before moving lower, or again just push out and move out. But as of right now, with what we're seeing right now in the 60, we're going to be looking for these areas during next week. See if we get any possible movements around to this area or to possibly around this area. So basically for this, I would want to see a move like so, right? Form a correction, cool, ascending channel at the third touch of this larger impulse continuation impulse, right? That would be great for a risk entry. Basically just enter, once I see a retrace candle, you could also correct and then move out impulsively. And then at that point, I would wait for the first impulse and then tight correction to come to the downside, because we got there more impulsively. You could also just move up kind of correctively with no real structure to it. And again, at that point, I'm going to be looking for the first impulse and first tight correction to come to the downside. So that's a few opportunities to come to the downside. We could also look at push lower, hover along this trend line, and then a breakout to the downside, or we could push lower, hover here, and then break out to the downside. And just realizing I didn't screenshot any of these, so I'm just going to go through and do those again. But basically, just these first few opportunities, definitely a lot more stuff could happen in the long run, but I just want to focus for, next week. So push lower, correction, continuation. This would be a risk entry. So corrective move to the upside, risk entry on first retrace candle. So, all right, that's great. I'm just gonna screenshot just the chart. But also move up impulsively, right? And then move to the downside. Obviously, it's not just going to drop to the downside like that, but it's just for, visualization. So impulsive completion of impulse continuation, looking for impulse first tight correction. And basically we could push lower, hover along the trend line, and then move lower. And so then basically we have impulse, first tight correction, hover. Yeah. Cool. So there's some opportunities right there on GBP, JPY. We could also, now looking at Aussie USD, just to probably just going here with Aussie USD. So looking at Aussie USD, you can see a nice 1, 2, 3 touch. We have a break below, break right back inside the pattern, right? 1, 2 on the top. So basically, we're going to boil down to the daily now. On the daily, again, we're seeing, basically in the middle of this pattern. So we could move to the downside, but we could also push to the upside because the higher time frame momentum is pointing to the upside. Basically the same thing as we were seeing in GBP, JPY. So we're just going to go to the 4-hour. This ascending makes more sense, right? You can see 1, 2, 1, 2. So we're looking for possibly a double top or a third touch of the pattern. And then going down to the 1 hour now, right? We see we could actually go a little bit early just because, or possibly because, not just because anything can happen in the market. So I'm not going to say it's only because of this, but possibly because we have this pattern right here, more of a rising wedge type pattern, where we could push to the upside. I'm just going to replay this. Bars pattern this. So we could push to the upside impulsively, and kind of the same thing as JPP, JPY as I was showing you. So if we get there impulsive completion of impulse continuation, bottom of larger ascending. All right, cool. Could also move up in more of a defined correction. So something like so. At this point, well, let me just do this here. It's more of a defined correction, something like so, right? With this more ascending pattern. So ascending, completion of ascending, impulse ascending, bottom of larger ascending. Could also just drop out. And here's where it's important of where we form the correction, because if we form it too close to the completion of this pattern, I'll likely just wait, because through my backtesting, I've seen that when we form tight corrections closer to the completions of the 90% rules of these patterns, we'll push up to the upside or push to the downside if we're looking, to move to the upside. Obviously, I'm not going to tell the market what it's going to do or not do, but as I've seen through the data, that's a good possibility. So if it forms the correction closer here, more above the 90% rule, this would be more valid. And even though there's the possibility that we could push lower and immediately push back above, there is also the possibility that this is the one that goes and we complete this larger ascending pattern that we're a part of. So it's kind of that, thing of the probable and the possible. So, this is another possible opportunity for me here on Aussie USD. So impulse, first tight correction. Looking to complete 90% rule. So those are just a few of the opportunities I'm looking at for the week. Going to be continuing to do more analysis, but I don't want to just like, inundate you with everything that I'm doing analysis wise, right? Just trying to show just a few things again, just to kind of put ourselves out there, document the journey, and then on top of that, hopefully I dropped a few nuggets in there that somebody might take a little bit of value from who's just a little bit earlier than me in the process or earlier than us in the process. Again, not to say that we know we're some trading gurus who've been in the market for 12 years, but it's always better to watch somebody who's actually on the journey that you're on, see their mistakes, see their things that they did right, see the things that are working for them, see the things that are not working for them. So that's kind of the idea. So hope you enjoyed it. Hope provided some value to you. Please join us again next time. And, hope you're enjoying the content so far. So thank you.